This video is for you if you feel like making change in your life is next to impossible. I'm here to tell you that, one, you're not alone in this feeling and that it's actually quite natural. But two, over the next few minutes, I'm going to give you guys the 3 steps to actually be able to master making change in your life. I'm not that different from you guys in that last night I found myself at the fridge late at night, and I crack open the fridge door and I'm looking in there, hoping that something different, new, or sweeter will have naturally baked itself and just put itself in the fridge to soothe the emotional overwhelm of starting this new business and trying to get my YouTube channel off the ground. And I'm standing there realizing what is going on, that I want to make this change, and yet there's these old coping patterns of emotional eating, of running away from the uncomfortable feelings, of spiraling into doubt, anxiety, and hopelessness, really. And maybe you recognize some of these patterns in your own story or in your own life. And this makes sense because when we look at behavioral change, when we look at changing our lives, right? The analogy that was given to me that's so beautiful that I refer to time and time again is, imagine that you've got this cabin way off in the woods, okay? And there's these big fields full of grass and logs and trees, and the very first time that you drive into this cabin, it's going to be a little rocky and a little bumpy, and you're having to make the path for the very first time. And so it's difficult, right? But you eventually make it to the cabin, and then you drive out following those same tracks. And then each subsequent time you drive to the cabin, you follow the same route. And over time, you begin to wear treads in the grass, and they become so deep. And there's rainy seasons, and there's dry seasons, and there's snowy seasons, and every season you drive through these ruts. And eventually they're so deep that when you're driving it, maybe you felt this, when you're driving and you go to pull, but you can't actually even get out of the rut because it's so deep. This is exactly what happens in our minds. We create these neural networks, these patterns, these ruts in our minds by doing, thinking, feeling the same things on repeat over and over and over. And so maybe you're very used to, thinking, what is it, on average, humans think 90,000-ish thoughts a day. 90-something% of those are the same as the day before, and 80% of those are negative or something like that, right? Like it's this astronomical percentage of negative thoughts that we think every single day on repeat. These are the ruts. And so what are the stories that are keeping you stuck, limited, small, and yes, safe, comfortably safe? But if you're here watching this, we both know that you're not here for safe. You're here for growth. You're here for change. You're here for expansion in some way, shape, or form, right? And so what happens is we recognize, oh my God, I'm in the ruts. And I've been in the ruts. Maybe that's with your finances and the way you think about money, scarcity. Oh, you got scarcity ruts. Or maybe it's with your health and there's sickness ruts and illness, and you don't know how to change your eating or your movement patterns or your commitment to your health. Or maybe it's in your relationships and you're in a rut of conflict and reactivity and you don't know how to get out of those ruts, right? And all of us are looking to try to make a change, which is to choose a new path, which is to, in the moment, not do the same thing we did the time before. It's to think a new thought, it's to feel a new feeling, it's to choose a new choice. But the ruts are strong. The ruts are deep, deep grooves. And so this is where I tell you you're not alone, because every single one of us has created ruts, unconsciously operating in life for the first 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, wherever you're meeting this video at. Likely, what's that number in your head? How long have you been running that rut, that same pathway? So the first thing is to give yourself a layer of compassion and grace, because wow, if the rut's that deep, then it might take, if it took 30 years to build it, if it took 20 years to build it, it might take more than one day to just undo it. Might even take more than a month. Might even take more than 6 months. That's why my programs are 3 to 6 months long is because I know that it takes a sustained, consistent effort. And this is the next point I want to get to, is when we begin to change our lives, one of the things that we need to do is it needs to be a sustained, consistent effort over time to continually choose a different path. The other image that comes to mind when I think about change is like a vortex or a whirlpool. It's got a gravity to it, which is the old patterns, the old feeling, because we actually become chemically and neurologically addicted to the feeling that we get from being stuck in that state. And it's crazy to think, but there is an addiction that occurs there. And that's the gravity that pulls us into a feeling of inadequacy, a feeling of helplessness, a feeling of victimhood, a feeling of unworthy, undeserving, not enough. So, we got to break the addiction. But that's a conscious choice every single day, where the gravity is going to try to pull you back in. And even just a few days ago, because, I've walked this season in health where I transitioned from completely, I had those ruts with my health and sickness and weakness and just feeling like I was disconnected from my body. Everything made me sick or bloated, or I had symptoms I didn't understand. But every single day, it was a matter of anchoring in affirmations, anchoring in new choices, new feelings, new thoughts, new stories. And eventually, it's like choosing a new path and having to be off the road again to make that same old pathway. So if I can break this down super easily and simply for you, when we look at all of the biggest names around behavior change and creating habit change, we see, Atomic Habits with, don't tell me, James Clear, right? And as if one of you was going to chime in, comment real quick. Tony Robbins, of course, kind of the master of behavior change. And you see that there are some of these common threads as we want to tie it to an identity. So there's a bigger reason for the change. It's not just because I want to, but it's who do you become? And as a result of you becoming that person, what's the life you get to live? What's actually important, the underlying why, right? Coming to terms with that is one of the greatest driving factors for any change in our lives. This is where I've had to come back to this time and time again. Like when I'm exhausted, when I don't feel like making a YouTube video, what's the underlying why, And it's not just because I want millions of dollars. It's because I want to be a safe man for my family, for my partner, and for my kids to come. And that means embodying the provider role as well, being able to provide for them, not just mentally and emotionally and physically protecting, but also financially. So it's like, anchoring that in. Also because I'd love to treat my parents to a gift, and there are these aspects that just are more than just, why do I want money? Because of the way that I get to use it and the way I get to feel with it. And that drives this desire, and also the desire to impact. There's a version of me out there that would have loved to have this video 5 years ago, 7 years ago, and connect with me. And that's really when I look into the lens I try to do my best to speak to. So making this very simple, whatever change it is in your life that you'd like to create, one, there's a story driving the stuckness. So what is all the limiting beliefs, the stories that are keeping you stuck? Identify those first. 2, get clear on what it is that you actually want to do. Where do you want to go? How do you want to think, feel, and act as that new version in that new life? The next one is, from this place of understanding exactly where you want to go, you want to get clear on a very simple, tangible action that you can do every single day. Pick one, lower the bar to entry, make it simpler and easier to access than you think it needs to be. 2, stack it on top of something you're already doing. So maybe you brush your teeth, then you meditate. Maybe you finish your breakfast, then you do your workout. Whatever it looks like, stack it with something you already do every day. It's called habit stacking. The third one is track it. Find a way to whether it's on your phone, on a piece of paper, the moment you can track it and you get that little dopamine hit from accomplishing some task time and time again that feeds this identity that you're creating, it's going to begin to compound, because it's not just, there's these incremental changes we make in our lives, but exponentially they begin to impact us in these really powerful ways. So even if you think like drinking a single glass of water and stretching for 5 minutes before you start your day is like not going to make any difference, I say otherwise, and I would challenge you to do it for a glass of water and 10 push-ups, or meditate for 10 minutes or 5 minutes a day, whatever it is. These are the 3 very simple, tangible steps you can take, and whatever it is for you. If you want to take this from, there's so much information out there in the world. Here's the thing. You can find this anywhere. You can find this on any YouTube video. You can just ChatGPT it and you get the same answers. What makes this actually stick is the human component of accountability. Having a loving, empathetic, compassionate, attentive, and accountable individual to be in space with. That's why coaching, that's why group coaching, that's why men's groups, that's why all of these containers create such radical change in someone's life, because there is the accountability, the high touch point, the thing that's when you're tired and don't want to do it and someone checks in on you, it's like, now this is going to anchor in the transformation on the days when it's very challenging. So my invitation to you is, if you're looking to make change in your life, but you feel stuck and change feels next to impossible, I'm inviting you to click on the link below and join me in my coaching. Apply to work with me one-on-one. This is what I specialize in, is human behavior change. It's the transformation, reprogramming the old stories to give rise to a new identity and a new life that you actually can fall in love with. Thanks for watching, you guys. Like, subscribe, follow along for more, and don't forget to check out that link below.